The City of Phoenix holds community budget hearings throughout April, allowing residents to comment and make suggestions on the city manager's trial budget before final decisions are made. This public discussion is among the reasons the city's budget so closely matches the community's highest priorities each fiscal year.
All right, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. Sorry for a couple minute delay. We were waiting on the city manager, but he's not here quite yet, although we do have the police chief. So thank you, Chief Yonner, for being here. We really appreciate it. And all the other city staffers and department heads that we have here. Thank you very much. I'm Jim Waring. I'm the city councilman for this area. And with me is my colleague, Bill Gates, who is just to the south. We have exchanged borders in the last realignment. So some of you were represented by Bill before, and now are me, and vice versa. So, but thank you very much for coming. Great turnout, frankly better than I think either of us had in our first couple meetings. So we're excited to see this many people. If you have comments, I think they probably hopefully explained when you came in. If you could fill out the comment cards, and then we'll speak into the microphone so everybody can hear your comments. We can record them for the record. They tally them up and give summaries of the comments and pass them along to the other council members and the mayor who aren't here. So it's an important way for us to gather information. And again, thanks very much for coming. Bill, did you want to? Oh, the city manager has appeared.
Look at that.
It's like an episode of The Flash. I turned around and there he was, reflecting on my childhood here. But thank you. Bill, did you want to?
Just briefly.
Anything after?
Yeah. It's great to be here. For those of you who live here in District 2, you're very lucky to have Jim Waring as your councilman, and I appreciate him inviting me over here. Absolutely. Please, round of applause for him. He deserves it.
It's a minority opinion. I appreciate it.
But it's great to be here. We look forward to hearing all your input this evening. And with that, I'll turn it over to our city manager, Ed Zerger.
Video. Yeah.
Very good, thank you. I apologize for walking in late. I meant to do something at the 7th Street on-ramp onto the I-10 and the 51. So I got caught in more traffic than I'm used to dealing with, but so I apologize. But thank you all for coming. I appreciate the council members hosting this. We have lots of city staff here to listen, and also if there are questions to answer, we're here either during the meeting or after. And I will give a special recognition to our police chief, Joe Yonner, who has joined us here. So thank you to the police chief for being here. He is a North Phoenix resident, so he knows very well the geography of North Phoenix. We have a video, as they said, to go over generally. If you'd like more detail, there are handouts on the table that describe in more detail. And if you want even more detail, phoenix.gov/budget. You can get as much detail about this trial budget as you would like there online as well. So there's different layers of information you can go through to understand what we have. If you'd like to speak, as he said, please fill out a card. This looks like a great turnout. We always count on the folks in Paradise Valley to come out and give us their opinions, and that's important. That's why we're here. So with that, I'll step out of the way. We're going to take a look at a video, and then we'll go to the questions, comments, and thoughts. Thanks.
And welcome to one of a dozen hearings on the city manager's 2015-16 trial budget. Input from our residents is so important and helps shape what will end up being the final budget for the next fiscal year. The final budget is important because it provides the plan for how the city will spend taxpayer money and how services that you depend on could be impacted.
I'm really pleased with this trial budget because it represents a year of really hard work. Leadership by the mayor and council makes some tough decisions, our employees who took concessions and who worked hard to save money, and our partnership with our residents to bring a balanced budget for 2015-16.
Why is a balanced budget important? It's required by state law and city charter. In this budget, there will be no cuts to the city services that you count on every day.
I think it's important with this budget to know that we brought it into balance without cutting any services, and we can actually add some very important things for the community.
Even with state fiscal actions negatively impacting Phoenix costs and revenue, and with the sunset of the emergency sales tax on food on March 31st, the budget is balanced and important additions are being made thanks to the hard work of everyone.
The funding for the city budget comes from different sources. It's not all coming from one place, and it's divided into three main areas: the general fund, enterprise funds, and special revenue funds.
Examples of general fund city departments include police, fire, the library, parks and recreation, and streets. Enterprise fund departments include aviation, water services, solid waste services, and the convention center. Special revenue funds account for designated sources of money for a specific purpose, like sales tax dollars for the hiring of police officers and firefighters, and funds for public transit.
So we look at all of those areas together. That's really the diverse mix of all the things that makes up our city budget.
The mayor and city council took action early on, leading us to a balanced budget. That includes eliminating 162 full-time general fund vacant positions last December. For a second year, additional employee compensation concessions at just under 1%. And over the last several years, the city has eliminated nearly 100 management positions and cut overtime costs by more than 50%. The efficiency efforts by city staff have been remarkable. The city is less than $2 million away from reaching its 2015 savings goal of $100 million over the past 5 years. The mayor and city council have also led reforms of the civilian pension system. In total, we can expect to see a savings of around $830 million over 2 decades, thanks to the actions already taken by the mayor and city council, along with the city pension board and voters. This will have a positive, long-term impact on the budget, although there is still more work to be done. In addition, the zero-based budget review process, looking at every program, has led to $1.2 million in savings for 2015-16. Every line item in the budget was scrutinized, which allows the city to find ways to save. Among the savings, $600,000 by closing 2 courtrooms where the number of cases has dropped considerably. $225,000 saved in the finance department by relying more on technology and reducing postage costs for mailing monthly statements. $200,000 in street transportation by analyzing signage and determining which road signs are unnecessary to install, maintain, or produce. These are just a few of many ways that staff has found to improve efficiency. To see the full list of savings, check out the budget summary packet provided at these budget hearings and is also available on phoenix.gov. One of the biggest challenges the city faces this year has to do with what's happening at the state level. In an effort to balance its budget, the state has shifted costs and reduced revenue to cities like Phoenix. That has led to a $6.3 million negative impact on the city, which in turn eliminated a $4.3 million surplus, which would have been used to address important city needs. This created a $2 million deficit. To balance it out, here's what the trial budget suggests. Holding off on replacing some older city vehicles and equipment, along with slowing the growth of the city's contingency fund, which is still at its highest level in city history. Here's a look at the new services proposed in the trial budget. First, let's look at the general fund. The budget adds $14,000 for implementing full-time recreation at the county-provided Cofelt Rec Center. It's located at 19th Avenue in Buckeye. That means the existing rec center will be filled with kids year-round. In the area of innovation, the budget adds a business analyst to begin preparations for Phoenix 311, which would provide a centralized information center, as well as identifying technology needed to implement a unified municipal services card. And many residents feel that protecting the public should be the city's top priority. That's why public safety amounts to 71% of the general fund in this trial budget. This budget adds an additional $2 million for 40 hours of police officer training for every officer. Now to dedicated public safety special revenue funds. Due to the fact that these funds will be balanced next year, the budget includes the hiring of 110 police officers in 2015-16, which will increase the size of the police force from where it is today. The council also approved a plan to hire 90 firefighters next fiscal year after hiring approximately 75 this year. Now let's look at dedicated Phoenix Parks and Preserves Initiatives funds. Those funds would provide maintenance for 3 new desert preserve trailheads, creating more opportunities for residents to enjoy our preserved trails. From the Development Services Funds, which is paid for by building permit and inspection fees, is this proposal, making for a better customer experience in planning and development services with improved technology and training and more staff to enhance the electronic plan review section and the front counter service. Now to dedicated transit funds. The light rail is seeing more riders now than ever before. The proposed budget would fund rail operations for the new Northwest Extension to 19th Avenue and Dunlap. Out of dedicated aviation enterprise funds comes an important improvement at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. It's one of the 10 busiest in the nation. The trial budget calls for the addition of a dedicated team at the airport to analyze noise impacts of flight activity, assess any proposed changes by the FAA, and to reach out to the community to solicit feedback and exchange information. Out of the solid waste special enterprise funds, the trial budget calls for operating a composting facility which will divert several tons of green waste per week from the landfill. That facility is scheduled to open next year. But the list of community needs continues. Among them, police body cameras, addressing homelessness, restoring library hours, after-school programs, support for arts programs, park maintenance, and street maintenance and street landscaping. Any budget requires trade-offs, and street landscaping is an example of that. It is important to keep our city beautiful and safe by making sure trees and shrubs along the roadways are maintained. Right now, that happens when residents make a report, but that could soon change. The council will soon vote on whether to bid for the service, which means the roadways would be regularly maintained 3 times a year. Although funding is not currently available to increase this service, the Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee is evaluating additional options which would increase the frequency of street landscaping service with added costs estimated to range from $1.5 to $6 million. Additional funding sources would need to be identified.
So the 2015-16 trial budget is really good news. We balanced the budget with no cuts to services. In fact, we've added some things that are important to the community. But we always want to be looking ahead. And so we have a 5-year plan. We forecast ahead. And we see that we have some issues to deal with after this year.
One of the biggest challenges to the general fund, public safety pension costs. Much work has been done on the civilian side, controlled by the city, but the state-controlled system still faces challenges. This trial budget assumes phasing in added public safety pension costs over the next 3 years, allowing city services to be preserved. Also, revenue growth will be affected by actions taken by the state on income and sales taxes. The city is planning ahead on both of these issues and will work hard to address them over the next 12 months. Keep in mind, the budget hasn't been adopted just yet. Your input is important, and the City of Phoenix wants to hear from you on what the upcoming budget should look like. 12 public hearings will take place this month across all council districts, and you are encouraged to attend. You can also send your comments or questions to budget.research@phoenix.gov, or to reach out to us by phone, call 602-262-4800. You can also comment on social media by using #PhoenixBudget. Thank you for being part of a very important process. The City of Phoenix is committed to its mission of improving the quality of life in Phoenix through the efficient delivery of outstanding public services.
All right, so thank you, thanks for the video. I think we'd like to go straight to the cards, so I think, Mr. City Manager, you have those in front of you. Do you want to just read them off, and then people will come up here, is that correct? Or should they come over here, either one?
I think we can have them come there, then that'll be
Okay,
easy for
perfect, for the
the
cameraman.
camera to catch them.
So if he calls your name, when he calls your name, if you wouldn't mind coming up and speaking into this microphone, so we can capture it for the record.
All
Okay,
right,
go ahead.
thanks. We will start with Stephen Hansen.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Stephen Hansen. I'm the CEO and President of the Arizona Humane Society. I'd like to start by thanking Councilman Gates for helping improve conditions along Hatcher Road. We really appreciate that and his support of the Humane Society. And I'd also like to thank Vice Mayor Waring for attending our donor appreciation event and for his support as well. We really do appreciate that. We at the Arizona Humane Society safeguard, rescue, shelter, heal, adopt, and advocate for animals in need, while inspiring community action and compassion on their behalf. We believe our partnership with the City of Phoenix significantly enhances the lives of both people and pets. Many residents know about our emergency animal medical technician services, which include 7 ambulances that pick up sick and injured animals across the valley and especially in Phoenix. Most residents don't know about the role we play in animal cruelty investigations. Last year, our emergency dispatch center received and processed 5,000 calls regarding animal abuse and neglect in the city of Phoenix alone. We are often a first responder who investigates these situations. Working closely with the police department, we provide veterinary medical care and housing for animals in protective custody. We provide forensic services in cases with less fortunate outcomes. We're committed to continuing our partnership with the police department and the city to provide this critical service to the community. Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you, Dr. Hansen. Next, we have Louis Howley. Louis?
Hello, I'm Louis Howley. I am the president of the Friends of the Acacia Library, and I want to once again thank the city for supporting the libraries in this city, and I want to make a pitch again for how appreciative we are of the city's support of the Sunny Slope Circulator, which is so important to that community and also important to bringing customers to and from the library. And I didn't mention at my last budget hearing, but I wanted to thank the city also for being a partner in the revitalization of Sunny Slope, which is such a different community after all these years. And I also want to say that as far as the Acacia Library goes, it is a small but mighty facility providing services to a range of customers, digital access for those who do not have access at home, a place where families can gather and interact with their children, both in a story time environment and in the children's play area. It's a general meeting place, and of course a place to get materials. And so I would like to say that if it were possible in the future to add additional hours, it would be nice, because of course Acacia is closed Sundays and Mondays, 2 consecutive days. And so it would be nice not to have such a large gap in services that affect the least advantage of our community. And I also noticed in the survey that the biennial community opinion survey and the employee opinion surveys are being discontinued as per council action. And unfortunately, I haven't been as up on council action as I should be. And so I wondered if someone could provide me with information on whether the thought was that they were redundant, or is there some other mechanism for feedback that's essentially replacing those? Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. The council, as a cost-cutting measure, we did reduce funding for the surveys, and I believe one of the main thoughts there was that the community was giving opinions to the council directly through these forums and others, and so that was a redundant expense, and that's why it was eliminated.
Yes, I think that's an accurate summary of the discussion as I remember it. I should also say, and I've neglected to mention, I'm sorry, and this is not a reflection on the first two speakers, so fellas, don't take it personally. You did not go too long. We are trying to limit it to about 3 minutes per person, and then if we need more time to follow up with questions or so forth, we can do that. But so just, if you could try to limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and then we'll kind of go from there and see where the conversation takes us. So thank you. Again, not a reflection on the first two speakers. Thank you. Ed, who's next?
Next, we have Jeff Gunter. Jeff?
Hi, I'm Jeff Gunter. Lived in the valley here pretty much all my life when we actually had real balanced budgets. No offense, but we don't really have a balanced, but one of the reasons we have a balanced budget is because we're pushing off pension expenses that the Arizona State Supreme Court ruled that the legislature wasn't allowed to do. Pensions, we know, are the 600-pound gorilla. We spent last year over $250 million in pension costs, and it's only going up. Now, public safety, by the inherent nature of their work, deserves a pension. Firefighter unions are trying to propose an amendment. When you look on the website for PSPRS, the average retirement age for public safety is 51. When you look on the Cooper's website, the average Cooper's is the civilian pension plan. This average civilian pension plan gives out $33,000 a year in average pension. Want to understand, we're projected to have budget deficits going in the next few years. Not necessarily this year, but coming up. It's a locomotive heading our way. So what do we propose to do? We're going to increase the sales tax, almost doubling it for more light rail. We're going to have almost 8.7% overall sales tax here in Phoenix. So how are we going to fix the pension problems going forward? Well, we're just going to keep increasing our taxes. We increased our water meter taxes to help get our budget balanced last year. And as you can tell, I'm kind of a fiscal conservative, social moderate fiscal conservative. We can't keep having the pension issues that we've had. Someone's going to have to make a hard decision, and as you've seen in the Chicago mayoral election, cutting costs usually makes a difficult re-election. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, Jeff did mention, and that was talked about in the video, one of the big issues, not for 2015-16, but for 2016-17, so a year from now, is a large increase in our public safety pension costs. And so it means that we have to work hard this next year in two things. Number one is on identifying costs, and we're starting to do that. Healthcare costs are one thing we're really working on at the city to find ways to reduce our healthcare costs. There's some significant savings that we're trying to get there. But the bigger thing is to get some reform done at the state level, because the state legislature controls the public safety pension system. And so we need to be working with them over the next year to find reforms that will withstand the court's decision, as you mentioned, so that we have some relief in the public safety pension arena. Thank you. And I see you're dressed appropriately for the week with your master's shirt on.
Phil wanted me to caddy for him.
Well done. You came here instead of going to Augusta.
That's
all right.
dedication.
I'm not sure. Anna Gaines.
You know what I need to do. Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. My name is Anna Gaines, and I am a retired educator. I used to teach high school, and now I'm an activist because I'm very concerned with the community and what's happening here in Phoenix. I know that I'm here because of the budget, and apparently in the budget, I'm sorry, were you able to hear me before? Okay. Apparently in the budget they have an ID, a municipal ID that they want to give everybody so that people can have benefits of bus and library and all kinds of things. This will help mostly to the illegal aliens because they cannot get an ID easily. We who are here legally or were born here very easily can go get a driver's license, or if we're too old to drive, we can go get a state ID card. I've never had any problems getting an ID. I have all kinds of IDs, and I just don't see why everybody needs a municipal ID that's going to cost the city $4 to $6 million to implement. We don't have the money. We did some research on the budget and on we just don't have it. So I don't see why we have to spend it. Now, yesterday I got the news that the national government has decided to begin issuing the National Real ID, which was introduced after the 9/11 problem. So if we're going to have a national ID, why do we need a municipal ID, a state ID? There's not going to be a need for that. There's only one ID that's going to be needed. I'm not happy about it because we are being led like sheep. We're going to be identified so easily. We're going to end up, and I keep saying this, people don't like to hear it, but I feel like the Nazis, they put a number on you so they can identify you. We're going to have an ID with our picture, our information that anybody can get access to. I don't like that. But the federal government is going to demand that we have it. And that's on the way. Yesterday, the news came out that they are going to implement it. Now, if this budget cannot afford what we are having to pay right now, why do we want to go into more debt to give everybody in the city of Phoenix an ID? There's no need for that, and I'm opposed to it. Thank you all very much for being so patient. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Let me just explain a little bit about what the issue is. So there's two things in there. They're not quite the same, but there's going to be some discussion with the council about them. On page 6 of this, there is an item proposed to be added to the budget, which is an information technology person. And that person would be a manager to do the technology, lead the technology effort to understand two things. Number one is we need to begin pursuing what's called a 311 program of the city of Phoenix. Right now, we have, I thought I brought it with me, but I didn't. There is like 3 pages of phone numbers at the city of Phoenix if you want to call somebody to get something. You got to flip through 3, 4, 5 pages of different numbers. It's nice that we have it all in one place, but the better answer, I think, and the councilman and I have talked about this, is to consolidate it into one number, one-stop place to call for information. And it might be something like 262-6311, because 311 is nationally the number to call for municipal information. Well, that's going to take a lot of time and effort, and it's a big technology effort to bring our systems together to talk like that. The second thing that person would do, and it says it in here, would be to start helping us think about what we might do to have what I call a unified municipal services card. And I'll just give you an example from my own wallet here. I have 4 different cards right now that I get from the city of Phoenix. This is a library card. This is a parks card to use a park facility. Many of you have those. This is a bus pass. And this is a golf card. I'm a Phoenix Golf member. Well, wouldn't it be better to have one card that can be used by all the city services to do that? Yeah, it would make sense to do that instead of flipping through 4. And then it would be even really better if you could also get that on your phone. Councilman Gates has been very much advocating that it would also be a phone thing. Now, the other thing, so that is what we need to do. But all these systems right now are different. They're all different systems. And you got to find a way to make those systems work together under one barcode or one magnetic stripe or whatever. And that's what we are starting. It's going to be a long process. There has been some conversation from some council members that they would also like to have it be an opportunity to be used as an ID. One place we use IDs in the city is if you take a load to the municipal dump. you have to show your water bill. This could be something that could be used to do that. Now, it is a policy question for the council that they're going to need to discuss, and we'll be discussing in the future is this something to do? Bring all these together, and in what way should they be used? Should they be used in some form of ID? But none of that supplants the state law that tells the police department what they can use for ID. So what the police department requires for ID is governed by state law and would not be superseded by anything done with a municipal card if it were used for an ID. So what I'm saying is we're at the very, very front end of this conversation. The primary piece of this is a technology question about can we make these 4 different things, and there's others that we have too, senior centers and others, fold into one thing that works for everything. That's a big technology question. The policy question of whether and how and what kind of ID it might be is something that will be conducted in an open dialogue at the council level. So just wanted to clarify that about what this is really trying to do and where the policy questions that the council is going to have to deal with lie. But thank you, Ms. Gaines, for bringing that up, because it is an item in the budget that we've talked about. Thank you. Next we have Anita Jaroulis. Oh, you are not sure, you don't wish to talk. Okay, thank you, Anita. Then Gloria Padalino. Sorry if I said that wrong. Don't wish to speak? Oh, I see, you said no. But you would like the library should be open every day. They're too important a resource for them not to be available. Too confusing trying to figure what's open when. Thank you, Gloria. Next is Harold Michelson, and he also did not wish to speak, but was here to advocate to keep libraries open every day, at least a part of every day. Thank you. Next is Peggy Parker, who did not wish to speak, but her comment was, please support our seniors. We've worked hard for you over the years and appreciate your working for us. Thank you. Thank you, Peggy. I don't know where I'm looking to say Peggy, but thank you very much. And I hope, do you use this center? Is this your center? Thank you. It's a wonderful place. Thank you for supporting it. David Parker. David Parker does not wish to speak, but asks, when is our roof to be repaired? When it rains, this room gets wet. I'm assuming you're talking about this room here.
The ceiling.
Okay, we will find, Mr. Gallegos is actually the department director for this, and between him and the Parks Department, we will figure out and get an answer to that question.
Last year during this meeting, they replaced the stained tiles.
So we didn't see the tiles last year?
No, you didn't see it.
Okay, thank you, we will get on that. Next is Mr. S.A. Everly. Steve, hi.
Good to see you first.
Good to see you.
Congratulations on your promotion. I'm S.A. Everly. I've been a resident of Phoenix since '78 here. I wanted to follow up on some comments that Anna Gaines made relative to this ID card and the expense that is anticipated. Going through, there's 214 pages of the budget. And being retired, I took the time to actually go through it. I missed a little portion there of that was on the screen about the usage cards for libraries and some of the other ancillary activities in Phoenix. But if you take a look at the numbers that are presented by the Phoenix Budget Department concerning some of these ancillary activities, one would kind of wonder, why are we spending the money to replace or consolidate those cards when, for an example, using the city's own numbers, the usage rate of the public libraries has decreased 13% since 2013. Your numbers. the bus and the trolley usage is identically the same, no increase or decrease, and that is even taken into consideration, which I just recently found out, that city employees use the bus and the trolley for free, so do some of the students. So why are we replacing cards or consolidating cards on ancillary activities that have actually decreased? Parks and Recreation has only gone up 1% since 2013. So having run a business, still own them, but having run a business for 37 of my years, I didn't spend money unless it made me money. And I certainly didn't put money after bad. And if it's costing money to print a card for the library, print a card for the bus, and one for the trolley, and so forth, I don't have a real problem with keeping it the way it is right now. And I have a library card, got one a long time ago before they invented the internet. Don't use it now. But I remember when I went to get my ID card for the library, all I had to do was present, I think, my bill. At that time I was renting. I had to present my electric bill or something to state my address. There's nothing there that says that my name really is what I say it is, or any of that nature. So I'm really reluctant to be complacent on this ID card, particularly when I understand there was a lady recently, last week, that came from New York City to educate 4 of the city council people. I don't think you guys were one of them. I think they were for the other side. On the benefits of this city ID card. So that's the bulk of my conversation here.
Okay. I just want to be clear, there is no money in the budget to do anything except have a technology person take a look at what the requirements would be. So there's no money planned to be spent. There have been talk about how much the card costs. There's none of that. What we have in the budget is the money that we currently do have to issue any of these cards. But the technology person's main job is to look at 311. The council is in the process of discussing this whole issue. The person you talked about, the city council member from New York, I believe is coming next week to speak privately to people. She's not speaking to the city council that I am aware of in a formal session, but I did hear that too. But I just wanted to be clear on that. But thank you for that. Judy Giles is next. Yes.
I don't want to speak, but Michelle does.
Michelle. Do I have Michelle Goings will speak. Thank you. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Goings, and I'm a resident of Council District 3, and I'm also a member of the Phoenix Arts and Culture Commission. First, I'd like to just take a minute and commend the council persons and the city manager, all the leadership for the excellent job that you have done on the budget this year, and just how far we've come in a relatively short period of time from the dark days to now. So I just wanted to commend you and thank you very much for all your efforts. But I'm also grateful that the budget doesn't cut anything from the arts and culture services to residents of Phoenix. It is important because the investment in the arts are investments that pay off many times over. For this reason also, I'd like to consider additional funding in the near future, especially for our grants program. The grants program, well, we have about 160 arts and culture organizations in the city who can benefit from the grants program. Right now, we're able to help less than half of those arts and culture organizations, and so we would like to also have some additional consideration in the future for that arts and culture program. And I did see it on your slide presentation, so thank you very much for also being mindful of that. Also, just about arts and culture and its effect on tourism, I just want everyone to know that during Super Bowl season or Super Bowl weekend, we also had a lot of people that came in from out of town who also took advantage of our arts and culture organizations while they were in town. So that was one driver of their plans to come on down for Super Bowl. Also, I did sit at the Center for the Arts, Joseph's organization, and he had a festival out there in December. And I did meet a nice lady who was in town from Canada, and she was down for the week, and she specifically wanted to find or attend arts and culture organizations. So just keeping in mind that when people do come to Phoenix for tourism, one of their main goals is the arts and culture organizations. And then in District 3, I just wanted to just kind of bring to everyone's remembrance about some of the organizations that we have in District 3, which is the Red Rocks Festival, the backers of the ballet, the Arizona State Poetry Society, Theater Artist Studio, the Sunny Slope Historical Society and Museum, the Arizona Lindy Hop Society, the Arts Council of the North Valley, and the Arizona Bach Festival. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that there are arts and culture organizations in District 3 that also tourism is attributing to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Tim Rafferty. Tim.
Thank you, City Manager and Councilman. My name is Tim Rafferty. I live in Tempe, Arizona, and so I stand before you today as a neighbor. The reason that I am here is I'm asking the City Council to take a very hard look at the Unified Municipal Services Card. You've heard some discussion already on it. If you remember the film that was showed at the beginning of the meeting, that card was used and associated with safety. We haven't heard anything about safety about the municipal ID card, but that's what the film is trying to set the tone for. And I am here to suggest that this card is really not about joining things together or giving IDs for people that supposedly can't get IDs. This card, I suggest, is really about giving an identification and making those that are in our country illegally residing in Phoenix part of the fabric of Phoenix. And if these ID cards get issued and they get in the hands of those in our country illegally, they'll be used in Phoenix. And what does that do for your budget? Your budget will increase every year. There has to be a mechanism, if they do this, to assure that people in our country legally are the only people that are able to use this card. And it's next to impossible. And if you take the lady that's coming next week from New York, you look at New York's ID program, and you look at San Francisco's and all of the cities that have issued these municipal ID cards, they are all sanctuary cities. And they all say it. Look it up on Google. Arizona Republic, if you're here, do your reporting. They all say these cards are to benefit those that can't get an ID. And the only people that can't get an ID in this country are people that have come here illegally. If you come here legally, you have paperwork and you can get all the identification you need. This card, again, if it's issued, is going to be a calling card Glenn Campbell, by the time I get to Phoenix, my ID card will be waiting. You will be drawing people to Phoenix to become part of your fabric. Do you want people in the country illegally part of the fabric of Phoenix? I don't think so. And what happens in Phoenix overflows into the other communities, the surrounding communities. Please, City Council, take another look at this ID card. It's, respectfully, sir, not about joining things together. It's not about I can't get an ID. It's not about gender preference on an ID card. It's about making those in our country illegally that reside in Phoenix feel comfortable so they can become part of the fabric of Phoenix. Please scratch this idea for America, for Phoenix, and for the state of Arizona. Thank you.
Next is Vince Ansel. Vince Ansel? Okay.
Sir, how you doing?
Mr. Zurcher, your argument concerning the use of those municipal ID cards was very well presented, okay? And it makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels, okay? However, there are certain members of this Phoenix City Council, namely Valenzuela, Pastor, Gallego, and Nowakowski, who have a little bit of a different agenda than what you had presented, okay? They brag about following the model of the municipal ID cards issued in New York City, San Francisco, Oakland, and a number of other sanctuary cities, okay? Now, this is from a New York Times article, hardly a bastion of conservatism here, but right from the New York Times. New York is expected to introduce, they have already introduced this card, the country's largest municipal identification program, issuing cards intended as a boon for undocumented immigrants. The card will confer discounts for prescription drugs, access to city buildings, and free memberships to zoos and museums. It will be accepted as a library card across the city's 3 public library systems and recognized as an identification to open an account at several banks and credit unions. For undocumented immigrants in particular, many realities of city life, renting an apartment, filling a prescription, encountering a police officer who asks for identification, have long produced headaches. My gripe in all of this is that the city council and the city manager's office can't ask the residents of Phoenix, the legal residents of Phoenix, to fork over their tax dollars over to make it more comfortable for those who aren't even supposed to be here to begin with. Please reconsider your stand on this, sir. Thank you.
Joanne Scott Woods.
I am a retired educator and an activist too. I wanted to give my perspective on the municipal IDs. I'm not a real threatening person, but I've been threatened as an activist by police officers. And one of the things that I noticed in one of my protests that I went to was the FBI had a facial recognition camera on the protesters as they went up Central Avenue. And when I went to get my driver's license, they specifically asked me to face the camera. I'm 67. That never happened before. And I believe that if we have this municipal ID, we're going to be profiled. And I'm already called a terrorist because I'm an activist. And I use my right of free speech. That's why I wouldn't want this. Now, I'm not sure if this is the budget, does it deal with homelessness? Are there any items?
The Phoenix budget, there's no additions for homelessness, but the Phoenix budget has significant funds for homelessness. The city provides a significant amount of money, around, I believe, $700,000 a year to Central Arizona Shelter Services.
Right.
And the city also operates a shelter for women and children in Central Phoenix on Watkins Street. So
Yeah.
the city of Phoenix is the largest single funder of cities in Arizona of homeless services.
Is there, I know there was some money added, was it 2.5 million or 1.5 million recently? We just had a homeless march, and
Yes, I know what you're speaking about is that there is a request to the Phoenix Industrial Development Authority, the Maricopa County Industrial Development Authority, and the Valley of the Sun United Way to put an additional $2.5 million into homeless services because of the closure of the Maricopa County Men's Overflow Shelter.
Right.
So that's what you would have heard.
yes. Now, according to the Maricopa Alliance for Shelter and Housing, MASH, that provided about 240 vouchers, and there are like 400 to 800 homeless people. And it's going to be getting hot on June 5th when the budget closes. And I didn't know if there was any way to have something in the budget to provide permanent shelter for the homeless.
I don't think the 240 vouchers are what the 2.5 million are for.
Okay.
It's more than that, isn't it? More vouchers?
Yeah, we have, there's 275 vouchers the city's approved that we're using. The $2.5 million that's being referred to is for rapid rehousing to house additional folks.
Okay.
And then we're planning on trying to find air-conditioned or under-roof housing for all the rest.
Will that
So,
be
okay,
before the summer hits?
Yeah. So Mo is our Human Services Director. He's been
Okay.
working closely with Maricopa County and the state of Arizona on the plan to do what you say, which is to have a plan in place before it gets too hot for people who are affected by the closure of that Maricopa County shelter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
I'll
much.
talk to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You'll be here. Thank you, ma'am. I have one last card, unless there's someone we missed, and that's Diane Neiman. Hi, Diane.
Hello, I'm Diane Neiman. I live right here in District 2, and I was at the city council meeting recently, and Jim Waring was against the municipal card, but at that meeting, there were probably 40 people that had a one shirt on, and apparently people were saying they're homeless people they're illegals that want to get this municipal card so they can have access to a lot of the facilities and not have to show that they have, like a city water bill or something like that, and things like that to get to the dump, and just all the activities. If they just had that ID, they could really bypass some of the cards that you and I can get legally. So that is the plan, for the illegals to have an ID. And, right now, I have to use my money to get a new national real ID so that I can fly starting in January. And my I own a home, I'm paying taxpayer, my taxes, but I'm going to be paying for this ID that these illegals will be getting. And I don't think that's right. I really don't think we want to draw more and more illegals into this area and then give them these IDs so that they feel they got a free ride. The second thing that's close to my heart is homeless. I feed and help give necessities out to people at Andre's house, which is off 19th Avenue, south of Washington. And because the shelters, well, a shelter near that has been closed, I believe. We had last Saturday half as many as normal that showed up. Now, these are people that come up and they interact with me. Some of them are veterans. These are people that are American citizens, and they need to be considered for more places to stay. Andre's house has a place where they can shower and wash clothes and get some clothing, but that's not a place to stay. So I just really think we need to have a heart for the people. A lot of them have down on their luck or whatever, but we don't want them on the streets. And so our taxpayer money should be more giving to people that are homeless than to people that came here illegally. Thank you.
I just want to be clear. The budget proposal to combine cards is not the same as a question about an ID. And I fully understand the ID, and that's a dialogue and policy discussion that will happen. But this issue of combining cards into one does not supplant the ID that's necessary to get the cards. It does not change what it requires to get the services. It's simply a technology issue of, should we hand out 4 or 5 cards or 1? But I understand what folks are saying on the other end of that. And there will be lots of time for that discussion as well. Frank Maslieta, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name, Frank.
Hi, it's Frank Maglietta.
Maglietta.
I would just,
Thank you.
you know, this thing today about this shooting of this individual in Charleston, South Carolina. This incident about the individual who was shot and killed in Charleston, South Carolina. And I noted in the budget, at least according to the paper, during the Republic, there's an increased funding for police training. So I'm just wondering, you know, I would say it's terrible that this person got killed. But then I was also thinking his family is going to sue the Charleston, South Carolina for probably millions of dollars. It was going to impact that budget. So I'm just wondering, you know, what is going on as far as training in the police department so that our city is not caught in the same situation. And I have one other little item. I just wondered, this is not really to you, but to the councilman, and this whole business about this pension costs. As I understand it, because of what you're going to do on the 3-year extension, it's going to cost the city $64 million more than you would if you had paid money up front to begin with. I just wonder what the council persons have to say about that. They're the ones that really have to make a judgment about that. And the other thing about it, because of that Arizona Supreme Court decision making it so you cannot reduce or diminish pensions, if they have any comment to make about making some statement about repealing or amending or changing the Constitutional Amendment 29, which is really the essence of the whole problem. If you can't control that, you can't control pension costs. Thank you.
Okay, so Frank, you had 3 things. I'll start with 1. I'll ask Chief Yonner to come and answer your question about training because he can tell you very clearly what the training issue is, and you raised one very important piece of it. And then the council members also will also conclude our meeting. But the issue, you said the budget is based on an option that the state of Arizona gave, which was to either pay a full amount for public safety pensions right now, or to have a 3-year phase-in. I chose to build the budget on a 3-year phase-in because it meant that we would spend $52 million less this year and next year on pensions, which gives us time to be able to figure out strategies to save enough money to be able to afford that or figure out what to do. Now, we could do the option, which is to pay it all now, and we would be here today talking about ways to find that $52 million in the next 2 years, either in revenue or in cutting services. And so my judgment, and we're here to take input on that. Some people agree and some people disagree, was that it's better to give ourselves time under the plan offered by the state of Arizona to figure that out rather than to cut services right away. But it's subject to people's opinion. And so
I would just, it does cost money. It costs about $64 million. And usually when the federal government does that, it's known as kicking the can down the road. So we should face our financial facts and deal with it.
Certainly that's a choice we can make. I'll ask Chief Yonner if he would like to just talk about what is going to, Chief, why don't you come up front so everybody can hear you. The Chief has been a leader for us in advocating returning to more formal training for our police officers, and so he has a very specific plan.
Thank you, Ed. We're going to do 40 hours of training for every Phoenix police officer, and we haven't had the opportunity to do that for the last several years. And it's very important that we get all the officers trained in the same areas at the same time so we can be much more efficient and effective. Some of the training is going to be cultural sensitivity. We have a very diverse community. We want to be able to be sensitive to all those different segments of our community. We're going to talk about mental health orders. We serve 4,000 mental health orders, emergency orders each year. So we're going to talk about better service of those. We're going to talk about communication skills for our officers, active listening. We're going to have role play issues when it comes to communication. We're going to do reality-based training when it comes to use of force issues. So there'll be classroom as well as hands-on with ammunition, so that we can actually practice what we preach. So it's going to be a very comprehensive 40-hour block of training, and we're really looking forward, and we appreciate the city manager and the council's support on it, because it's very much needed for our police officers so they have the tools to be successful and to provide the best service we can to the community. So thank you.
We have one more card, or if you want to answer that question,
yeah,
we can take one more. How do you do it?
Thank you for the question. I just wanted to follow up on the comment from the chief. Whereas you're seeing some terrible incidents in other cities, in the city of Phoenix where the officer-involved shootings have been investigated, what's happened is that we found that the officers were in the right and that there haven't been any indictments at all, and that speaks, I think, to the training that's already been provided and the great work by the chief and his team. But we need to work even harder because it is an incredibly difficult situation that our officers are in 2015 America. And so we appreciate all the efforts on that front. With respect to pension, Councilman Waring and I have been on the losing side on the pension issue over the past few years in the city of Phoenix. I would say that I'm happy that we've taken some steps, but I think I speak on behalf of Councilman Waring that we both wish we would have seen the city taking stronger steps to really get these pension costs under control. But a lot of it, as has been raised, a lot of it is outside of our hands, and it is in the hands of the state. And so that's why I personally called upon the governor to work with folks, get everyone around the table, the employee groups, businesses, and come up with a real solution moving forward that really addresses these pension costs. Because if not, this is something that's going to bury all of us. And it's not just here in Arizona, it's across the country.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I don't know how many, maybe a show of hands, have any of you gone on a police ride-along recently? Okay, a few people have gone. I did two this past year. It's tough duty. They got it. My father-in-law was a police officer for 20 plus years, and technology has improved things and so forth, but it seems like, and the chief can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's come up when I'm talking to some of the officers, it seems like it's a more violent world, a more ramped up world. You got more drugs and more this and more that, and it's just, they gotta make split-second decisions. I just, if they are clearly in the wrong, then they're clearly in the wrong. But I hate sometimes the rush to judgment about individual officers and individual cases. I think the same would go for our military, where they're making just split-second decisions under dangerous circumstances, thinking about their own families. We had an incident on a ride-along I was on, last year, and I got to ponder, what's my role going to be in this fight, since there's just the two of them rolling on the ground, and fortunately a lot of reinforcements came very quickly zipping around the corner in squad cars. But It's definitely not for the faint-hearted, and I applaud basic friends on the force and know some guys at the gym and so forth. Just please always ponder that when you read news stories. Just remember, they're not going out there to try to do the wrong thing or make a bad judgment. They got lots to think about in a very short period of time. So please, if you're interacting with officers, please keep that in mind as well. So, and I think Councilman Gates, as he always does, summed up things very well, so there's no reason to belabor it. As far as the pensions, I do have some specific thoughts about that. So he mentioned that we've taken some steps, which have been good steps. The vote that you participated in March of 2013, I wouldn't necessarily classify it as reform, but it sort of rejiggered some of the equations and saved us, I think, about $600 million over about 30 years. So that's helpful for sure. And that's for our system, for our employees who are not police and firefighters, basically, the COBRA system. So we had a pretty big run-up. I'm sorry, I'm not looking obviously at the last 10 years in front of me, but Ed, I think you probably have the numbers probably tattooed on your back or something, because it's something we talk about all the time, and you certainly have to respond to our questions. So I would say it's fair to say there was a pretty big run-up until right about now in the COBRA system, about doubled from memory, almost doubled in the last decade about what citizens are paying in the general fund, which means less police, less fire, less parks, less libraries, less road repair, a lot of stuff that we like. So that's been an issue. But because of council action, maybe we didn't do everything that, I know I made one proposal myself about pension spike, and I thought we completely eliminated it. It didn't pass. Councilman Gates did vote for it in October of 2013. But thanks to the changes that we did make, it's pretty much leveled off at about 75 million and then drops to 74 million a couple years from now. So at least we've gotten a handle on that. That's the thing we can control. The thing we can't control is the state system, PSRS, for public safety personnel. My predecessor on the council, Brian Jeffries, is head of the State Firefighter Association. I don't want to speak for Brian, but they have recognized that this is an issue. And if this trajectory continues, I think we were paying a few years ago about 60 million. Now it's roughly about 115, 120, and then it'll be 180 here in just a couple more years. Every 60 million is about 5% of our budget, roughly. So you can't just keep, if any of you have your own business or done family budget, you can't just keep chipping away 5% of your budget every few years. Pretty soon you'll be cutting things that you will miss. So Ed and I, with all due respect, may disagree this year about the plan to finance the pension obligation that we do have. I think, so is it a 22-year obligation, and the last year we're still paying $2 million? Is that right? I think that's 22 years. So 22 years from now, we'll still have a $2 million payment for this year's costs. I just think at this point, we're looking at a budget situation next year of maybe, if we split the difference, maybe about a $50 million potential deficit. Is that what we're? So about $40, $50 million deficit for next year. With this, we have a $40 or $50 million deficit. Was it $40 million for this year for the pension issue? You know, we're going to be addressing the same size problem next year. It doesn't get any easier. So I feel like in some ways, by coming out and saying we got a balanced budget this year, that we are not giving you kind of the full picture of what these budget hearings may be like next year. And if we're going to have the pain, maybe I am just a rip the bandage off kind of person rather than, just peel it off. I would say maybe we should address some of our long-term problems this year. It doesn't look like that's what's going to happen, but I don't want to be for Bill, but that's the way I view it. So, and I do, I'll be long gone from the council 22 years from now. Bill will be too, thanks to term limits or nature or whatever. But we'll both be gone, but some successor of ours in both districts and the other districts are going to be wondering, what's this $2 million for? Well, we get nothing for that. That's from a payment from, so that'll be in 2037. That was incurred in 2015. And I don't like to do things that way. If it's capital expenditures, that's one thing, you're building a building, but I think that's not something I would prefer. So that's my thoughts about that. I appreciate it very much. Do we have the last card?
Thank you. Our final card is from Gail Burdell. Gail, did you wish to speak? Gail is commenting on an item in which we have an efficiency cut, which is to stop producing school zone signs for free for school districts. And she's advocating that the school districts need that, and we should reconsider this is a valuable safety concern for our students. Thank you. Thank you, Gail.
Could I have a follow-up question, sir?
Absolutely.
Do you have one too, Jeff? I'm sorry. So we had two, I think the pension thing and then.
Sure.
There's a disconnect somewhere, but it's probably on my part. But 2012, Councilman Nowakowski pushed an ID card for illegal aliens because of SB 1070, show me your papers. It's out in the news, it's fact. And give him credit. He said what he wanted it for. It's to help illegal aliens who don't have IDs, so they can help call the police, blah, 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 blah. I called his office 2 days ago, and I said, is this card, it's on page 6, is this card the same card that Michael Nowakowski was pushing back in 2012? The lady I talked to said, one moment, let me go find out. She came back and gleefully said, yes, this is the exact same card. So I ask that you talk to Councilman Pastor, who's pushing this now, and ask where is this disconnect? There's one PhoenixID.org, and Pastor is pushing this card as an ID for illegal aliens. And it, with all due respect, it sounds like you're saying, no, that has nothing to do with it. It might not in your world, but it sure does in a bunch of other people. And I want you to take a hard look at this, because if what you're saying is correct, and in your world, that's all you're looking at, what you told us about, that's good. But there's some other people that want to ride your shirt tails and do something else with this ID card. Again, I thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We had another
Yes.
response.
Well, you had mentioned something about a couple years ago, the voters passed what in theory was called real pension reform, where new hires were going to pay their fair share. The only reason it's for new hires is because we can't do anything by the state constitution. We can't affect current employees. But from what I understand, the council has passed, or is putting up for a vote to change that to where now the new hires will not pay their fair share. They're going to be capped at like 11%. I wonder if you can comment on that. The second point is, why it got greener than you guys doing it in August? I mean, August, why aren't you doing it, and I know you guys are, but I mean, do it at midnight on New Year's Eve or something like that. But no one's here in August. And yeah, I understand it's the way council likes to get things passed. You're having the light rail doubling of the tax in August too. Heaven forbid you guys put it on the ballot when people are going to vote like, oh, I don't know, next year when there's going to be a presidential election. This light rail tax doesn't expire until 2020. We've got another 5 years. But I understand you want to get it through. Some people want to get it through with low voter turnout. Nobody, unless you're running, Councilman Gates, nobody's voting in August.
So you talked about several issues. So the transportation tax, Councilman Gates and I both voted against it, right? So Councilman Gates and I both voted against it. So, and I understand what you're saying, the council or city action as a whole, you said you guys, and that, I guess that would exclude myself, Bill, and Sal DeCiccio, I think it was the 3 of us. So we voted against the transportation tax. I agree with you about the 5-year thing. I have concerns. I actually gave an interview to Channel 15 and Channel 5 about this today. You know, I have concerns in the Republic that you know, we're doing this year, and then we're going to come back to voters next year potentially with like we did last year, more tax increases or fee increases after that thing's already passed. Given that we had the 5 years, it seemed like a little rushed. So your point was, why are you doing it now, and why are you doing it in August? I think Bill and I have both supported consolidated elections. So we don't set the time of the August part of it, but I do think we shouldn't be having our elections in the odd years when turnout is pitiful. So I think the record turnout, I'm pretty sure we had the city clerk here who actually lives in the district, but I don't see, oh. So I think our record turnout is 27%. Is that?
In recent years, it's about 30%.
About 30%. So somewhere around 30%, which is obviously extremely low turnout. I think in our area, when we haven't had competitive council elections, which is another point you made, I think it's been as low as 11, actually. I checked, but I haven't checked like this morning. So, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So You know, for this August election, which has a $33 billion transportation tax on it and $7.2 billion in new taxes, to put it on a ballot when right now there are no opponents for the candidates who are running, you know, you're probably going to get closer to the 11% than 30%. That's not a whole lot of people to be participating in an election, and part of that is because we're doing it in August of 2015. Some of us, including Southern CCO, Bill and myself, went to Governor Brewer a couple of years ago. She signed a bill into law to change the elections so that there would be, when people actually vote in the even numbered years. Phoenix went to court, and Tucson went to court, and so a lot of their cities switched, but Phoenix and Tucson did not. So I disagreed with us going and fighting state law in court, but the city of Phoenix did prevail. I think it was the latest thing was the Supreme Court failed to take the case, which means now Phoenix and Tucson can continue to do the elections when a lot fewer people vote. I find that a little frustrating. We could save, I think, Chris, we've talked about that, I think about $500,000 if we did switch and put our elections on the ballots with the county. So it actually costs us money to get fewer people to vote. So now you're probably wishing you'd never mentioned this, because now I'm going off on my high horse about how it would be better for us to have elections in even number of years if it would. But you also remind me, I did not answer Frank's question, and I apologize. You talked about changing the state constitution. So remember I talked about Brian Jeffries, a former councilman. So they are working so that the police and fire are in the state system. So to your point, you'd have to change the state constitution. And they are talking about doing that. Legislature could put something on the ballot for citizens to vote on. Citizens could go out, or the firefighter union or whoever could pay for signatures, to get the thing on the ballot. I don't know exactly where they stand, but I think Mayor Stanton had committed to me that we were going to have a hearing about this at the last meeting, or maybe 2 meetings ago. But in any case, I think he said they were going to have, so we can at least look at the plan and then see where we go from there. But yes, I definitely think it would be a good thing to change, to try to get some, I mean, if we don't, we'll go broke eventually. Won't be able to make the payments eventually. To Jeff's point about there's a pension issue on the ballot in August, I think, again, Bill, you voted no, correct? So Bill Gates and I think Sal as well, voted no on that issue for the very reasons you suggest. It seemed like we're undoing some of the key components of the March 2013 vote. There is potentially $20 million in savings, I think, over quite a period of time. I don't think in a risk-reward scenario it was worth to me the risk. To be right after we made the change 2 years ago, that's been at least successful in reducing costs, or at least getting a grip on costs. That was not something I could support. So I voted against it, but you're correct, it will be on your ballot. I plan to vote no, but it will be on the ballot. Voters will have a choice in August of 2015. Did that answer all your questions? Okay, thank you, sure.
Well, thank you all very much for coming to our hearing. This is the 10th of 12 hearings, and this is the most commented upon hearing that we've had. So once again, District 2, District 3, show the colors and represent well. You're fortunate to have straight shooting council members, and let's give them a hand. Have a great evening.
You've been watching a community budget hearing held recently in Phoenix. For questions, comments, or ideas, please visit phoenix.gov or call 602-262-4800. You can also send feedback or videos through social media at #PhoenixBudget. This video can also be seen online at phoenix.gov/11 or youtube.com/City of Phoenix AZ.